Officer Daniel walked slowly down the quiet street with his police dog Max by his side. The evening sky was painted in shades of orange and purple as the sun dipped below the horizon. The neighborhood looked calm, almost too calm. The houses stood in neat rows, their windows glowing with warm yellow light. Daniel had been on patrol here many times, but tonight felt different. There was an unusual silence, the kind that made him pay closer attention to every sound. Max's ears twitched, and his body stiffened. The dog had sensed something. Daniel followed his partner's gaze and noticed movement near the old construction site at the end of the street. A small figure darted quickly across the shadows, disappearing between piles of bricks and wood. At first, Daniel thought it might be a teenager sneaking into a place where they didn't belong. But when he looked again, he realized it was much smaller. It was a little girl. Daniel frowned. What was a child doing alone in a dangerous construction area at this hour? His instincts kicked in. He raised his voice. "Hey, stop right there, it's not safe." But the little girl didn't stop. Instead, she looked over her shoulder for a split second, her wide eyes glinting with fear, and then she ran faster. She clutched something close to her chest, as if she was protecting it from the world. Daniel sighed and gave Max a short hand signal. "Go," he whispered. Max sprinted forward, his paws hitting the ground with speed and precision. The dog didn't bark or growl. He was trained to move silently, to chase but not harm unless commanded. The girl's small legs could not outrun him. Within seconds, Max was close enough to block her path. The girl shrieked and stumbled, falling to her knees. Dust rose around her as she scrambled back, tears shining on her cheeks. By the time Daniel caught up, Max was standing guard, watching the girl with alert eyes. The dog's tail wagged slightly, a sign he didn't sense danger, only confusion. Daniel slowed his pace, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "Hey, it's okay. Don't be scared. He won't hurt you," he said softly. His voice, usually firm and commanding, carried a gentleness he rarely used on duty. The girl sniffled, clutching the object in her arms even tighter. It looked like a folded piece of paper or maybe a photograph. Her small fingers shook as she tried to hide it from him. Daniel bent slightly, lowering himself to her level. Up close, he saw she was no older than 7 or 8. Her hair was messy, her clothes a little worn, and her eyes, deep brown and full of fear, met his with hesitation. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She didn't answer. Instead, she shook her head quickly and whispered, "Please, don't take me away." Those words hit him like a weight. Take her away? Why would she say that? Daniel exchanged a glance with Max, who tilted, his head as if he too was puzzled. "You're not in trouble," Daniel said after a moment. "I just want to make sure you're safe. This place isn't good for kids. You could get hurt." The girl stayed silent. Her chest rose and fell quickly as if she was still ready to run at any moment. Daniel noticed her hands again. The paper she held was now a little visible. The corner of the photograph peeked out, showing a hint of a police badge. His curiosity grew. Slowly, carefully, he extended his hand. "Can I see what you've got there?" he asked. The girl shook her head, again, but this time her grip loosened slightly. Her eyes filled with fresh tears. Finally, she whispered, almost too softly to hear, "It's my dad." Daniel froze. His heart gave a strange jolt. He leaned closer as she finally uncurled her fingers and let him glimpse the photograph. The fading picture showed a tall man in a crisp police uniform, smiling proudly at the camera. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He knew that face. It was James Carter, his old academy partner, his friend from years ago. Daniel hadn't seen James in such a long time, not since he vanished under mysterious circumstances. The last memory Daniel had of him was in the academy locker room, talking about his newborn baby girl and promising to introduce her one day. And now, right in front of him, was that little girl. Daniel's eyes softened as he looked back at her. She stared at him with suspicion, still unsure if he was someone she could trust. Max inched forward and gently sniffed her hand, his wet nose touching her skin. For the first time, a small, nervous smile tugged at the girl's lips. She reached out and gave Max a quick pat. Daniel took a deep breath. "You're James's daughter, aren't you?" he asked quietly. The girl's eyes widened. She nodded slowly, clutching the photograph again as if it was her shield. Daniel felt a rush of emotions, shock, sadness, and a strange sense of responsibility. He had let James slip away from his life without ever checking what had happened. Now fate had placed this child right in his path. The evening air grew colder, and the street lamps flickered on one by one. Daniel realized this was no ordinary encounter. This was the beginning of something bigger, something that might change both of their lives forever. As the girl stood in front of him, fragile yet strong enough to wander alone, Daniel knew he couldn't just let her go. He would have to find out where she came from, why she was here, and most importantly, what had happened to her father. And so, under the quiet sky, with Max watching closely, a new story began. The little girl stayed on the ground, her knees dusty, her fingers clutching the photograph like it was the only thing that mattered. The faint glow of the streetlight above her made her small figure look even more fragile. Officer Daniel could see her chest rising and falling fast, as though every breath was a battle between fear and trust. Max, the police dog, sat beside her now. His sharp eyes softened as he tilted his head, sensing the child's fear. Slowly, he lowered himself, lying on the ground with his nose near her hand. It was his way of saying, "I'm not here to hurt you." Daniel took a careful step closer, lowering his voice. "You're safe. I promise," he said. "Nobody's going to take you away tonight." The girl's lips trembled. She hugged the picture tightly and whispered again, "Please, don't take me away. I just want my dad." Those words struck Daniel like a blade of sorrow. He knelt down so he wasn't towering over her. His badge glinted under the streetlight, and for a moment he worried it might scare her more. After all, to some children, police meant safety. To others, it meant loss. "What's your name?" he asked softly. She hesitated. Her small eyes darted to Max, then back to Daniel. At last, her voice cracked through the silence. "Lily?" Daniel gave a small smile. "Lily. That's a beautiful name." Lily didn't smile back. Her arms wrapped around her knees, picture pressed against her chest. Daniel sighed. Something in her eyes reminded him of James, her father, the same deep brown filled with both warmth and worry. He wondered what Lily had been through, what had pushed her into wandering alone in the night. "You said you were looking for your dad," Daniel continued carefully. "That man in the picture, he's your father?" She nodded. "Yes, but I can't find him." Her voice was so small it almost vanished into the night air. Daniel swallowed. He wanted to tell her everything, but the truth was complicated. James Carter had been his closest friend years ago, but after a tragic case and mysterious disappearance, no one had seen him again. There were rumors, whispers, unanswered questions. Daniel had buried those memories deep inside. And now, this little girl had unearthed them all. "Do you live around here, Lily?" Daniel asked. She wiped her nose with her sleeve before answering. "I live with Grandma, but she's very sick. She sleeps all day now. I just wanted to find Daddy. Grandma told me he used to wear a uniform like yours. So I thought, maybe someone would know." Her words pierced Daniel's heart. A child, searching for her father with nothing but a photograph and hope. Max nudged Lily's knee with his nose, making her jump slightly. But then, for the first time, her lips curved into the tiniest smile. She reached out with trembling fingers and touched Max's fur. The dog stayed perfectly still, letting her pet him. Daniel watched the scene quietly. Something inside him shifted. He had chased many suspects, caught many lawbreakers, but never before had he felt so protective of someone he barely knew. "Lily," he said gently, "do you know where your grandma lives? Can I take you there?" She froze. The smile vanished as quickly as it came. "No, don't take me back. I don't want to go back." Daniel frowned. "Why not?" Her chin quivered. She didn't answer right away. Finally, she whispered, "Because Grandma can't take care of me anymore. She cries a lot. She says I need my dad, but he's not there." The silence that followed felt heavy. Daniel realized Lily wasn't just lost, she was desperate. She didn't run into the construction site for fun. She had run because she felt she had no one left to guide her. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. He didn't know what to say. He wanted to promise her that everything would be okay, but even he didn't know the truth about James's fate. Still, he couldn't let her carry this pain alone. "Listen," Daniel said, his tone firmer now, like a father speaking to his own child. "I knew your dad. He was my friend, one of the best men I ever met. You don't need to be afraid of me. I'm going to help you." Lily's eyes widened. You knew my dad?" "Yes," Daniel said, nodding. "He used to talk about you. You were just a baby back then, but he loved you very much." Lily's small hands trembled. Her lips parted, and a soft gasp escaped. He talked about me?" Daniel's chest tightened. He nodded again, this time with more warmth. "All the time." A tear slid down Lily's cheek, but it wasn't from fear anymore. It was something else. Relief, maybe. The thought that her father hadn't forgotten her brought a tiny light into her heart. Max barked softly, almost as if agreeing with Daniel. The sound made Lily giggle faintly, though her laugh was fragile, like a flower blooming in the cold. For the first time since he saw her, Daniel felt she might begin to trust him. The night air grew cooler, and Daniel knew they couldn't stay in the construction site much longer. He stood slowly, holding out his hand. "Come on, Lily. Let's get you somewhere safe. I promise Max and I will stay with you." Lily looked at his hand for a long moment. Her small fingers clutched the photo tightly, as though afraid to let go of her father. Then, with a shaky breath, she placed her other hand in Daniel's palm. It was such a small hand, but it carried so much weight, so much loneliness. Daniel squeezed it gently, as if promising to carry that weight for her now. Together, the three of them, an officer, a lost child, and a loyal dog, walked out of the shadows of the construction site into the dimly lit street. Daniel knew this was only the beginning. Lily's story was far from over, and in his heart, he felt that maybe his own story wasn't over either. The night was quiet. As Officer Daniel walked with Lily by his side, Max trotting faithfully ahead of them. The little girl held Daniel's hand tightly, as if letting go might mean losing the last bit of safety she had. Her other hand clutched, the photograph of her father pressed against her chest like a shield. Daniel kept glancing down at her. Her face was tired, her steps slow, but her eyes never stopped searching the shadows, as if expecting something or someone to appear. He wanted to tell her everything was fine now, but he knew words alone wouldn't erase the fear written on her young face. Finally, they reached Daniel's patrol car parked under a streetlight. Max leapt inside when Daniel opened the door, then wagged his tail as though inviting Lily to join. She hesitated, biting her lip, staring at the police car with uncertainty. "It's okay," Daniel said, crouching beside her. "You're safe with me. Max will be right here too." Lily looked at Max, who gave a friendly wag of his tail, and that seemed to convince her. She climbed into the back seat carefully, still holding the picture close. Daniel got into the driver's seat, started the engine, and pulled away slowly. For a while, the only sound inside the car was the quiet hum of the engine. Daniel didn't want to push her with too many questions, but he needed to understand her situation. "So, Lily," he began gently, "you said you live with your grandma. Do you know her name?" She nodded. "Her name is Martha. She's sick. Sometimes she doesn't wake up for a long time. I try to make her soup, but it doesn't taste good." Her voice cracked, and she quickly wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Daniel's chest tightened. No child should have to carry such heavy responsibilities. "And you've been looking for your dad?" he asked softly. She nodded again, pressing the photo closer to her chest. "Grandma said he was a hero. She said he wore a uniform like yours. But when I asked where he was, she cried. She told me she didn't know if he would ever come back." Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He remembered those years too well. The day James Carter had disappeared, leaving behind a newborn baby and unanswered questions. Daniel had buried the pain by drowning himself in work, but he realized now that Lily had been living with the consequences of that mystery every day. He glanced at her in the mirror. "Do you know what happened to your dad?" Lily shook her head quickly. "No, I just wanted to find him. I thought maybe if I showed his picture someone would tell me." Daniel's throat went dry. She had been wandering the streets, clinging to nothing but hope. The patrol car rolled to a stop near a small diner that stayed open late. The neon sign buzzed faintly in the night air. Daniel turned to Lily. "Are you hungry?" Her eyes widened and she nodded shyly. "A little." They stepped out of the car, Max staying close beside Lily as they entered the diner. The warm smell of fresh bread and soup filled the air. Daniel chose a quiet booth in the corner, where they wouldn't attract too much attention. He ordered a simple meal, soup and a sandwich for himself, and a plate of fries with milk for Lily. When the food arrived, Lily ate quickly, almost too quickly, as if she wasn't used to having enough. Daniel slowed her down gently. "Easy, Lily. There's plenty. Take your time." For the first time that night, she looked a little more relaxed. She dipped a fry into the ketchup and gave Max a small piece under the table, giggling softly when the dog licked her fingers. Daniel smiled. It was a rare, fragile moment of childhood peeking through her sadness. As she ate, he pulled the photograph closer to examine it under the light. James Carter's smile in the picture seemed frozen in time, his eyes full of pride. Memories flooded. Daniel, training together, late-night talks at the academy, James speaking about his baby girl with excitement. Daniel finally asked, "Lily, do you remember your dad at all?" She frowned, thinking hard. "Not really. Just sometimes I dream about him. Grandma shows me this picture and tells me he was brave. She says he wanted to protect people, but I don't know why he left." Daniel's heart ached. The truth was that James hadn't chosen to leave. He had disappeared while working on a dangerous case. But how could he explain that to a child? He leaned forward. "Lily, I want you to know something. Your dad really loved you. He talked about you all the time, and I'm going to do everything I can to help you." Her eyes glistened with tears. "Really?" "Really," Daniel said firmly. She leaned back in the booth, still clutching the photo, but finally allowing herself to eat more slowly. Max laid his head on her lap, and she absent-mindedly stroked his fur. Daniel sat quietly, watching her. Empty. Inside, he felt a sense of guilt. James had been his friend. When James disappeared, Daniel had been too lost in his own career to look deeper into what happened. He had let time pass, assuming someone else would take care of James's family. But now, looking at Lily, he realized that someone had to be him. As they finished their meal, the diner grew quieter. Daniel paid the bill and guided Lily back to the car. She yawned, her small body clearly exhausted. He opened the back seat and helped her climb in. She curled up against Max, who stayed perfectly still to give her comfort. Within minutes, she was asleep, the photograph still in her hands. Daniel sat in the front seat, watching her through the mirror. His mind was heavy with thoughts. This wasn't just a chance encounter. It felt like fate had placed Lily in his path for a reason. As the engine hummed softly, Daniel whispered to himself, "James, I don't know where you are, but I promise I'll look after her. She won't be alone." Outside, the night stretched on, silent and endless. But inside the car, for the first time in a long while, Daniel felt a flicker of purpose. The police car hummed softly along the road as the city lights faded into the distance. Lily slept in the back seat, curled against Max, who kept watch like a silent guardian. Her tiny hands still clutched the photograph of her father, her grip so firm it seemed as if she feared losing it in her sleep. Officer Daniel glanced at her through the mirror. A wave of memories came rushing back. James Carter laughing during training, James calling him brother, and James's proud face the day he showed Daniel the picture of his newborn daughter. That picture, the same one Lily held now. Daniel's throat tightened. Life had a strange way of circling back. He never thought he'd meet James's daughter like this, alone and frightened. He parked the car outside the station but didn't wake her immediately. For a few moments, he just sat there, thinking. If he brought her inside, there would be questions, paperwork, and decisions about foster care. Daniel knew the system well, and he didn't want Lily lost in it. Not when he owed her father so much. Instead, he turned the key off and leaned back in his seat, letting the silence wash over him. Max shifted, his eyes meeting Daniel's as if waiting for guidance. "I know, boy," Daniel whispered. "She's special. We can't just treat her like another case." Finally, Lily stirred, her eyelids fluttering open. She looked around, confused for a moment, then spotted Daniel in the front seat. Relief flickered in her eyes. "Where are we?" she asked sleepily. "At my station," Daniel replied. "But don't worry. We don't have to go inside right now. I just wanted to make sure you were safe." She sat up straighter, rubbing her eyes. "Are you going to send me away?" Daniel shook his head firmly. "No, Lily. I promised I wouldn't. I meant it." Her shoulders relaxed slightly, though the fear in her eyes didn't vanish completely. "Can I ask you something?" she whispered. "Of course. Did you really know my dad?" Her voice carried both hope and doubt, as if she was desperate to believe but afraid of disappointment. Daniel turned to face her properly. "Yes, Lily. Your dad and I trained together. We started this job side by side. He was one of the bravest men I ever knew." Her eyes widened. "Did he talk about me?" Daniel smiled softly. "All the time. He carried your picture everywhere. He was so proud of you. You were the most important part of his life." Tears filled Lily's eyes, but this time they weren't only from sadness. A small spark of happiness flickered within them. She pressed the photo against her heart. "Grandma said he loved me. I didn't know if it was true." "It's true," Daniel said firmly. "Don't ever doubt that." A silence settled between them, but it wasn't heavy. It was gentle, like a bridge being built between two hearts. For the first time, Daniel felt Lily's walls begin to lower. Max wagged his tail, sensing the change, and rested his head on Lily's lap. She stroked his fur slowly, her face softening. Daniel knew this was the moment to give her something she had been missing, a connection. Not just to her father, but to someone who cared. "Lily," he said quietly, "I can tell you stories about your dad. Would you like that?" Her eyes lit up. "Please." So Daniel began. He told her about the academy days, how James always ran faster than everyone else during training, how he had a laugh that filled the whole room, and how he once stayed up all night studying because he didn't want to fail his exams. Lily listened with wide eyes, hanging on every word. "Was he funny?" she asked. Daniel chuckled. "Very funny. He liked to tease me about my serious face. He said one day you'd grow up and laugh at me too." She giggled softly, and for a brief moment, Daniel saw James's spirit in her smile. The stories continued, each one weaving the image of a man who was not just a uniform, but a father full of love. Lily soaked up every detail as if she was piecing together the father she never had the chance to know. But then her expression grew serious. "If he loved me so much, why didn't he come back?" Daniel's heart sank. He had no easy answer. He couldn't tell her the full truth, not yet. The investigation into James's disappearance had been closed without clear answers. Some said he had died in the line of duty. Others whispered darker rumors. Daniel himself never stopped wondering. He placed a gentle hand on hers. "Sometimes life is complicated, Lily. Your dad didn't leave because he wanted to. He would have been with you if he could. That I promise." Her eyes glistened, but she nodded slowly, accepting his words. The clock ticked quietly as the night deepened. Daniel realized he couldn't keep her at the station all night. She needed rest, warmth, and comfort. He made a decision. "Come on," he said softly. "Let's go somewhere better." He drove her to his own home, a modest house on a quiet street. As they pulled into the driveway, Lily looked around nervously. "Is this your house?" she asked. "Yes," Daniel said, smiling. "And you're welcome here tonight." Inside, the house was simple but cozy. Daniel brought out a blanket and made a small bed for Lily on the couch. She sat down carefully, Max curling up beside her like he had always belonged there. As Daniel tucked the blanket around her, she whispered, "Thank you." He paused, looking at her with gentle eyes. "No need to thank me. I'm just doing what your dad would have wanted." Lily's eyes closed slowly, her hand still clutching the photograph. Within minutes, her breathing steadied, and she drifted into sleep. Daniel stood watching her for a long moment. In her small frame, he saw both fragility and strength. And in her presence, he felt a renewed sense of duty, not as a police officer, but as a friend to James and a protector to Lily. He whispered to himself, "I couldn't protect you, James, but I'll protect her." As the night settled over the quiet house, Daniel knew this was no accident. It was destiny, reconnecting him to a promise he didn't even realize he had made years ago. The morning light streamed gently through the curtains of Daniel's living room. Lily stirred on the couch, blinking as she slowly woke up. Max was lying beside her, his head resting on his paws, as if he had guarded her all night. For a moment, Lily looked confused. She wasn't used to waking up in a place that felt safe. But then she saw the photograph in her hand, remembered everything that had happened the night before, and her gaze softened. Daniel walked in quietly, carrying a tray with a simple breakfast: toast, scrambled eggs, and a glass of milk. He smiled when he saw her awake. "Good morning, Lily," he said gently. She rubbed her eyes and sat up. "Good morning." "Hungry?" he asked, placing the tray in front of her. Her stomach growled before she even answered. She gave a small, embarrassed smile and nodded. "Yes," Daniel chuckled. "That's a good sign." As Lily ate, Daniel sat nearby, sipping his coffee. He studied her carefully. She was still so young, yet her eyes carried a weight most children her age didn't know. He wondered how long she had been living like this, lonely, worried, and searching for answers. When she finished eating, Lily looked at him with curiosity. "Are you going to tell me more stories about my dad?" Daniel smiled. "Yes, but I also need to tell you something important." Her little face grew serious. She hugged the photograph again. "What is it?" Daniel took a deep breath. He didn't want to scare her, but she deserved some truth. "Lily, Your dad, he was a very good man. He worked hard to protect people. But one day, something happened while he was on duty and he didn't come home. Nobody really knew where he went. Her eyes widened. So, is he gone? Daniel's chest tightened. We don't know for sure. Some people believe he died while helping others. But I never stopped hoping that maybe, someday, we would find out the truth. Lily lowered her head, her small fingers trembling as they held on to the picture. Grandma cried a lot when I asked her. She told me he might not come back, but I thought, maybe if I searched, I'd find him. Her voice broke at the last words and tears rolled down her cheeks. Daniel reached over and placed a comforting hand on hers. Lily, listen to me. Even if your dad isn't here, you are not alone. He loved you very much, and I know he would. Want someone to look after you. I promised myself last night that I'd be that person. She looked up at him, her eyes shining with both sadness and a flicker of hope. Really? Really, Daniel said firmly. I was his friend, and I won't let you go through this by yourself. For the first time, Lily leaned toward him, resting her head on his arm. Daniel froze for a second, then gently wrapped his arm around her shoulders. Max wagged his tail at the sight, as if approving of the new bond. They sat in silence for a while, the quiet filled with unspoken trust. Later that day, Daniel decided it was time to visit Lily's grandmother. If she was sick and struggling, Daniel needed to know how bad the situation was. Lily, he said gently, can you show me where your grandma lives? She hesitated, biting her lip. Will you take me away if we go there? Daniel shook his head. No, I just want to see her and make sure she's okay. I promised you I won't let anyone take you away without making sure you're safe. After a pause, Lily nodded. Okay. They drove across town to a small, worn-down house at the edge of the neighborhood. The paint was peeling, the yard overgrown, and the windows looked tired, just like the woman who opened the door when Daniel knocked. Martha, Lily's grandmother, appeared frail and pale, leaning on a cane. Her eyes widened when she saw Daniel in uniform, then softened when she spotted Lily behind him. Lily, she cried, pulling the little girl into her arms. Where have you been? I was so worried. Lily hugged her tightly. I'm sorry, Grandma. I just wanted to find Daddy. Martha's eyes glistened with tears as she stroked Lily's hair. Oh, my sweet child, Daniel stepped forward politely. Ma'am, my name is Officer Daniel. I found Lily last night. She was wandering alone. She's safe now, but I wanted to check on you as well. Martha sighed, looking weary. I'm sorry. I should have kept a closer eye on her. But my health, it isn't what it used to be. Some days I can hardly get out of bed. Daniel nodded, his suspicions confirmed. Martha loved Lily, but she simply couldn't care for her properly anymore. I understand, he said gently. You've done your best, but maybe it's time to think about what's next for Lily. Martha's eyes filled with sadness. I know. I've prayed for help, but I didn't know what to do. She deserves a better life than I can give her. Lily clutched her grandmother's hand tightly. I don't want to leave you, Grandma. Martha kissed her forehead. I don't want to lose you either, sweetheart. But I want you to be happy. Your father would want that too. Daniel watched them quietly, his heart heavy. He could see the love between them, but also the reality. Martha couldn't raise Lily alone anymore. Ma'am, Daniel said carefully, I was James's friend. I knew him well, and I want to help. I can look after Lily at least until we figure out what's best for her. She doesn't have to be alone. Martha studied him for a long moment, her tired eyes searching his face. Finally, she nodded slowly. If you were James's friend, then maybe this is how it's meant to be. Lily looked between them, confused but hopeful. So, I can stay with you? She asked Daniel. Daniel smiled softly. Yes, Lily, you can stay with me. Her small face lit up with relief. She hugged both her grandmother and Max at the same time, her little arms trying to hold on to everyone she loved. For the first time in a long while, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt since James's disappearance: purpose. But deep inside, he also felt another stirring. The unanswered questions about James's fate were still there. If he was truly gone, Lily deserved to know the full truth. And if there was even the smallest chance James was alive, Daniel knew he had to find out. The days after Lily's reunion with her grandmother passed quietly. Daniel allowed Lily to stay at his house most of the time, though he made sure she visited Martha often. It was clear the old woman loved her granddaughter deeply, but her fragile health made it impossible for her to provide the care Lily needed every day. Lily quickly grew comfortable in Daniel's home. She had her own small room, decorated with soft blankets and a few toys Daniel picked up. Max, his loyal dog, was always by her side, and she began to smile more than before. Daniel watched her change, realizing how much light a child could bring, into a house that once felt so empty, but inside, he still carried a question that would not let him rest. What really happened to James, Lily's father? One night, after Lily had gone to bed, Daniel sat at his desk. He opened an old box that he had kept hidden for years. Inside were pictures, letters, and files from the time he and James had worked together. He picked up a photo of the two of them in uniform, standing proudly side by side. James's smile in that picture was bright, full of life, as if nothing could bring him down. Daniel sighed. "Where did you go, my friend?" he whispered. He remembered the day James disappeared. It had been a routine operation, nothing unusual. Yet James never returned. Some believed he had died in an accident, but Daniel always felt the story was incomplete. No body had ever been found, and no clear answer was given. The more he thought about it, the more determined he became. Lily deserved to know the truth about her father. She had the right to understand who he was and what happened to him. The next day, Daniel visited the police archives. Rows of shelves filled with dusty files greeted him. He requested James's case file, something he had avoided for years because the pain had been too heavy. When he opened the folder, he noticed something strange. Many of the pages were missing. Important details, reports, testimonies, even maps were gone. Daniel frowned. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered. He checked again, hoping he had made a mistake. But no, it was clear. The file had been tampered with. Someone had removed pieces of the truth. As he stood there thinking, an older officer walked past. It was Captain Harris, a man who had been around during James's time. Daniel approached him. "Captain Harris," he began carefully, "do you remember James Miller? He disappeared years ago during that operation." The captain paused, his face tightening. "Yes, I remember him. Why are you asking now?" Daniel hesitated, then decided to be honest. "His daughter found me. She's been searching for answers. And I realized I never got them either. The file is incomplete. Do you know why?" Harris looked uneasy. He glanced around, making sure no one else was listening. "Daniel, some things are better left in the past. James was a good man, but there were complications. Not everything was written down." "Complications?" Daniel pressed. "What do you mean?" The captain shook his head. "I can't say more, just take care of the girl. That's what James would have wanted." And with that, Harris walked away, leaving Daniel more confused than before. That evening, Daniel sat with Lily in the living room. She was drawing pictures with crayons, one of herself, Max, and Daniel standing together under a bright sun. She held it up proudly. "Look, this is us," she said. Daniel smiled warmly. "That's beautiful, Lily." She studied him curiously. "Were you thinking about my dad again?" Daniel froze, surprised by her question. Why do you say that? Because you get quiet sometimes, like you're carrying something heavy. Her words struck him deeply. She was right. Yes, Lily. I was thinking about your dad. I've been trying to find out what really happened to him. Her eyes widened. Did you find anything? Daniel shook his head. Not yet, but I promise I'll keep looking. You deserve to know. She gave him a hopeful smile. I believe you. You don't give up. Her trust gave him strength. He realized he couldn't stop now even if people tried to discourage him. The following week, Daniel visited Martha again. She looked weaker than before, her hands trembling as she poured tea. After some gentle conversation, Daniel asked carefully, Martha, did James ever mention anything unusual before he disappeared? Anything at all? Martha hesitated. Her eyes grew distant, as if recalling old memories. James came to see me the night before. He was restless. He told me he was working on something important, something he couldn't fully explain. He said it might change everything for him and for us. What did he mean? Daniel asked softly. I don't know, Martha admitted, tears forming in her eyes. He hugged Lily, kissed her goodnight, and said, no matter what happens, tell her I love her. That was the last time I saw him. Her words lingered in Daniel's heart. It wasn't just an accident. James had been involved in something secretive, something that might have led to his disappearance. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He walked out onto the porch, staring at the stars. Max followed him, resting his head against Daniel's leg. I need to find out the truth, buddy, Daniel whispered. For Lily, for James, I can't let this go. Unbeknownst to Daniel, Lily had woken up and followed him outside. She hugged her blanket tightly around her shoulders. Are you going to find Daddy? She asked in a small voice. Daniel turned, startled, then bent down to her level. I'm going to try, Lily. I can't promise what we'll find, but I promise I won't stop searching. She nodded, her eyes shining with quiet determination. Then I'll wait. I'll be brave, just like Daddy. Daniel hugged her close, feeling her tiny heartbeat against his chest. In that moment, he knew his path was clear. Whatever secrets had been buried, whatever answers had been hidden, he would uncover them. James's story wasn't over, and neither was Lily's. The morning sun touched the curtains of Daniel's house, casting a soft glow across the room where Lily was still asleep. Daniel stood by the window, lost in thought. He knew he had reached the final stage of his search. The unanswered questions about James had followed him for years, and now, with Lily depending on him, he could not leave them unsolved. Later that day, Daniel returned to the police archives. He sat at a corner desk with James's thin, incomplete file in front of him. Something inside told him that the missing pages had not simply been lost, they had been taken. And if they were taken, then someone had wanted the truth hidden. For hours, he went through every connected report, old newspapers, and even off-record notes written by junior officers. At last, he found a faint clue, a reference in a side note, to a special assignment James had taken just before he disappeared. It was not an official operation. It was something confidential, only known by a few. Daniel followed the lead to an old storage building used years ago by the department. The place was nearly forgotten, covered in dust and cobwebs. Inside, he found boxes of old evidence. He searched. Carefully, and in one corner, he discovered a locked metal case labeled with James's badge number. It took effort, but he managed to break it open. Inside, he found several documents, a small notebook, and a photograph. The photograph showed James standing with a group of men in plain clothes, not in uniform. Behind them was a warehouse that Daniel vaguely recognized. It was in the outskirts of town. Daniel flipped through the notebook. It was James's handwriting. In it, James had written about a secret investigation he was carrying out on his own. He suspected corruption within certain circles, people who were powerful enough to silence him if he revealed the truth. James's last note chilled Daniel. "If something happens to me, my daughter must know I never abandoned her. I was trying to protect her." Daniel's chest tightened as he read. James hadn't left by choice. He had been caught in something bigger than himself, and he had vanished trying to protect the ones he loved most. The next day, Daniel visited Martha and shared what he had found. She listened quietly, tears rolling down her cheeks as Daniel read James's final note aloud. "I knew he was brave," Martha whispered, "but I didn't know he was carrying such a burden." Lily, who sat beside her grandmother, listened, with wide eyes. She clutched Daniel's arm tightly. "So Daddy didn't leave me?" she asked softly. Daniel looked straight into her eyes. "No, Lily, he never left you. He loved you so much that he was trying to keep you safe. He wanted you to know that." Her eyes glistened with tears, but a small smile broke across her face. "I always knew he loved me. Now I'm sure." Daniel felt a deep sense of peace. The truth was painful, but it was also healing. At last, James's voice had reached his daughter. Over the next few days, life slowly returned to its gentle rhythm. Lily spent her mornings in school, her afternoons with Martha, and her evenings at Daniel's house. She carried her father's notebook with her, sometimes tracing the handwriting with her little fingers as if it kept her closer to him. One evening, as the sun was setting, Lily and Daniel sat on the porch together. Max lay at their feet, wagging his tail lazily. "Do you think Daddy would be proud of me?" Lily asked suddenly. Daniel smiled softly. "He would be more than proud. He would see how brave, kind, and strong you are. He would say you're his greatest gift." Lily leaned against Daniel's arm. "And do you think he would like you?" Daniel chuckled. "I think he would. We were like brothers once. And if he could see us now, I think he'd be glad that I'm here for you." The little girl nodded, comforted by his words. "I'm glad, too. You feel like family." Her words warmed Daniel's heart. For years he had carried guilt, believing he had failed James. But now, caring for Lily, he understood that this was how he could honor his friend. By protecting the daughter James loved so much, he was keeping his promise without even knowing. Weeks passed, and Martha's health began to decline further. On her final day, she held Lily's hand and whispered, "Never forget, you were always surrounded by love." She passed peacefully, with Daniel and Lily beside her. Though it was painful, Lily faced it with remarkable strength, remembering her father's bravery and her grandmother's words. After Martha's passing, Daniel became Lily's guardian officially. Papers were signed, and with the support of the community, Lily found stability at last. One night, Lily placed the photograph of her father, the notebook, and her crayon drawing of her new family into a small box. She handed it to Daniel. "This is our memory box," she explained. "So even if we forget little things, we will never forget love." Daniel hugged her tightly, moved by her innocence and wisdom. As years went by, Lily grew into a bright and confident young girl. She excelled in school, always carrying the quiet courage of her father within her, and through every step, Daniel was by her side, guiding her, cheering for her, and reminding her that she was never alone. One evening, when Lily was older, she asked again, "Uncle Daniel, do you think I'll ever meet Daddy again? Someday?" Daniel looked at the stars above. "I believe so, Lily. Maybe not the way we expect, but love never disappears. It always finds us again." Lily smiled, comforted by his words. She leaned her head on his shoulder, watching the night sky sparkle. In That moment, Daniel felt a deep calm. The pain of the past had not vanished, but it had transformed into strength, love, and hope. James's story had ended, but Lily's was just beginning. A story filled with promise, courage, and the unbreakable bond of family. And Daniel knew, without doubt, that he would walk with her every step of the way.